Logical rationale for choosing this application. So my reason for choosing to evaluate this application is for two reasons. The first of those being that my own position as a teacher, and the second being my own research interests. The rationale behind evaluating this application is that it is my hope that I could find an application that I could recommend to either my students or other students that are looking to find different ways to be able to practice their speaking. Next section of the video, I would like to discuss or describe the selected material, which in this case is the application SpeakingPal. SpeakingPal is a free application which can be found on both Android and Apple iOS, and that can be used for practice conversations. So once opening the application and registering, learners can find a variety of topics and subtopics that they can choose to study, mostly through the use of scripted conversations. Within each subtopic, once they click on a topic that they find interesting, a video window will appear at the top, and then there will be several other options which will appear that are locked at the bottom. I'll go through the conversation, it'll provide the script, and at the end it'll provide the full script for whatever the conversation was about, that students can scroll through in small manageable chunks. And within the little dialogue boxes that indicate who is speaking, sometimes there are underlined or hyperlinked words that students can click on in order to find more information about a word. Like, they will be able to then unlock other options, and those other options will include the actual speaking practice that they will have using the conversation that they just saw in the video. Once they have said the utterance, it will then grade between 1 to 3 stars on how the application felt that they did with that particular utterance. And at the very end of the activity, when they finally finish the screen, for each turn for the learner, there will appear different options. So the first option is to play that segment of the video again, re-record the utterance. So for example, a student gets a 1 or 2 star rating, they can press the little re-record button, and they can do it again for a better grade. They will replay the learner's utterance, the one that they had already recorded, or it will present a link to pronunciation video with a sound, a pronunciation sound from that particular turn, and all of the sounds. Within this next section of the video, I would like to begin to briefly explain the questions within each of the evaluation criteria. And within this same section, within these questions, I will bring up some of the positives and negatives. One, I would like to begin with the questions about the implementation and user information. Question number 1 was, what are the perceptions of learners regarding the use of call technologies and language learning? So one of the authors that I cite here is Shang 2007 on page 81, which says that it is assumed that non-traditional students have positive learning attitudes towards online collaborative learning. Since most of them have jobs during the daytime, it is almost impossible for them to have face-to-face discussions on subject matters after classes in the late evening. So while SpeakingPal is not a collaborative application, the important part here is for non-traditional students, in that sometimes it can happen that you're a student studying another major, your boss sends you for English lessons, you're trying to go through some personal development, and you want to learn the language. And perhaps you have a day job, or you have a student and you're a full-time student, and you don't necessarily have the time to fully dedicate to taking English classes or to go to the autonomous learning center that is offered, for example, here at the University of Guanajuato. So one of the benefits for this particular application, SpeakingPal, is its portability, the ability to be able to use this application wherever and whenever. Question number 2, what information needs to be considered for learners in order to effectively make use of call materials? And one of the authors I cite here is Perez Paredes, 2011, on page 236. And this is regarding corpus. However, I find that this could apply to any type of call materials in general. So in regarding the use of corpus, one author suggests references the need for guidance, and is consistent in empirical studies involving student searching and analyzing corpus data. Additionally, I'd like to cite here Hubbard 2011, page 426 to 427. Some programs, software, and applications are simpler or contain various elements such as screen semiotics, which make the ease of use factor much higher than others. So here I would like to emphasize that there is a need for all call materials in general, that people could benefit from across the board, any type of call material, not just corpus, in having a tutorial, having an expert explain what exactly is included within this material. How this application is a little bit more, has a higher ease of use factor than corpus would be, for example, which would require much more training for students to use. So I would like to state that as a positive for this application. However, there are some elements that we will see later which can make it maybe a little bit confusing for learners, so they could benefit from having the teacher show them how to use this application. What are the hardware software factors which must be taken into consideration for choosing call materials? So Hubbard 2011, page 420 to 421, states access to the internet, appropriate and up-to-date computers, and operating system that is necessary to run the program in the classroom. I consider that to be a huge plus for this application, that it is available in cell phones, as it is a cell phone application, and also that it's available not only to Apple users or only Android users. It's available to both, because students nowadays have most of them have a cell phone. Finally, the last question in this section: what is the position of the teacher learner in the use of applications? So Breyer 2009, page 161, says teachers and students seek only definitive answers, such as being able to identify what is grammatical and ungrammatical. And within this application, it does give information as in the speaking utterances as to what is incorrect or not. It doesn't go very much into depth to show what exactly was the problem. It indicates a star rating, but it doesn't indicate what the exact problem was within there. So that could be one of the positions of the students, that they download this application in order to help them with explicit grammar rules for speaking. And this application will not provide that for them, which is a negative. Second, I would like to cite Hubbard 2011, page 145 or 146, which talks about teacher fit and learner fit. So teacher fit refers to whether or not the call materials fits with the language teacher's approach or teaching methodology inside the classroom. And learner fit refers to whether call material fits variables such as learner need, accounts for individual differences, and learning style. So depending on what the teacher's methodology is, or what their position or approach is to teaching, that will position the teacher within the use of this application, as well as the different learning styles for this. In the next section, I will discuss the questions related to interface design. Question number 1 is: what elements of screen semiotics does SpeakingPal incorporate to help learners navigate the application? So regarding Friendly and Waller 2001, page 149, they cite Race 1992, page 146, in stating that there's a need to help learners find their way around materials and also break them into manageable chunks. I find this to be a positive for SpeakingPal, as that they have different lessons, and within the different lessons they divide them into 2 or 3 different chunks, and each video is divided into 5 to 10 different turns for the student. So I find that to be highly manageable within the screen and the application itself. that you open one lesson and there isn't 800 lessons inside. They chunk them into various categories depending on what the video is related to. Question number 2 is, how can the use of signs within navigation features and overall design of SpeakingPal affect the usability and functionality? So again, Friendly and Waller 2001 mentioned the use of visual signposts, signals, cues, typographic conventions, colors, and icons, which provide a code. So this is on page 150, by the way. So within the SpeakingPal application, once you open it up and you see the different topics, each of those topics has a little picture on side the blue rectangle. There's one of them that has a government building on it, which there's another one that has a little briefcase on it, which are very good indicators that the first one might have to do with school, the second one might have to do with jobs. However, I found that to be done very well. However, there is one in particular that I don't feel functions very well, which is one that has a little picture of a rose on it. Roses are generally seen to be something romantic, but when you click on the little icon there, it brings you to a page at the top heading within the navigation, which tells you that it is about friends, which I find there's some type of breakdown there. However, the navigation system in general is very easy to use. At the top, there's like little arrows, there's little rectangles with different colors, which indicate here's a place that you can click in order to navigate. Furthermore, I'd like to cite Roy 2014, and page 132, non-native users' understanding of website design and also predicting how any reader is likely to access a website becomes more straightforward when a website is designed using comprehensive framework and considers usability and functionality. SpeakingPal is an application which is, as the name implies, focused on the productive speaking skill. How does this application adapt to the context of the learners with its interface for speaking purposes? In considering the individual learner and the design of software, application, and websites, I'm going to cite Fenley and Waller 2001, page 155. Most software remains insensitive to the identity of the individual learner and is only weakly adaptive to their preferences and actions within the program. And thus, consequently, we can see that the possibility of forming a virtual relationship between the teacher and the student becomes extremely difficult. So this is a negative about the application. We can see that in the videos, from the accent, it seems to be American English or maybe Eastern and Southern Canadian accent, and so as well as having very white, blonde hair, brown hair. I saw a beach, different houses, but there isn't very much context that's different from what I would imagine would be from that North American context, which might be difficult for the student to form this virtual relationship. Finally, question 4, what elements does SpeakingPal include to assist the learner with the overall readability and the scripts within the units? Again, I would like to cite Fenley and Waller on page 150. Use of color can help identify different types of materials or activities within the materials. So SpeakingPal does a very good job of indicating that there's these little rectangles with blue that indicates that it's something that you can click on, as well as they also cite something about the Royal Society for the Blind that says about 12-point font that is most highly readable. As being somebody who without their glasses is visually impaired, I was clicking around the app and it seems to be very, very readable even without my glasses on in using it. Additionally, I would like to give them a little bit of credit or kudos for providing the learner with hyperlinks. As I mentioned before, that there are little hyperlinks that they can click on to get synonyms, as hyperlinks may help them feel a perceived sense of control within the application, which is Fenley Waller 2001, page 157. Section 3 is L2 learning tasks, and question 1, how and what elements of collaborative learning can call materials take advantage of in design of its speaking tasks? I like to cite Shu Chen and Shu, 2016, page 968 to 969. And they cite blogs that may be text, audio, or video based have become one of the most well-received and widely used online applications of recent years. And one common difficulty faced by an English as a foreign language context is the lack of opportunities to put the language knowledge that they have acquired into practice in the environment. So SpeakingPal is not a collaborative learning activity, which I find to be a major negative within this application. However, the opportunities that they have within the application to practice speaking, while not collaborative, could be conceived as being somewhat of a positive, in that in comparison to there being no other option, nothing else to be able to use to speak, this is an option in order to try to enhance that productive skill. And this could also be something that the developers of this application could consider in the future in making their application more collaborative, or adding that blog aspect where you could have asynchronous communication. What types of tasks can be considered for the speaking task, and what is their possible benefit? So I'd like to cite Newgarden and Zhang, 2016, Shu Chen and Shu, 2016, and Hung and Higgins, 2016. So we saw throughout the whole entire literature within chapter 2, there's voice blogs, there's video games, and there's in Hung and Higgins, 2016, page 902, that the faster pace of interaction might be a positive for this type of speaking tasks, especially those that are synchronous. This application is something I consider somewhere between synchronous and asynchronous. The learner there that is listening to the conversation somewhat in real time, they have a pause between the two segments so that the student has an opportunity to gather their thoughts. Also displays the text at the bottom, so there's less pressure and there's less of a face threat towards the students. However, there isn't, it's not like an email or a blog in that it could be days or hours. Pros and cons of speaking tasks for learners. So pro, as I just cited Hung and Higgins, the same thing, faster pace of video-based SCMC might reinforce the effect of promoting fluency. The more the students use the application, the more fluency they could gain, while in a very restricted sense. And SCMC can promote the use of target language, but noted possible effects of task design on learners' motivation and suggested learners' identities which appear to be influenced by their language proficiency. So depending on how their skills or how they're going through the app, that could affect their learner identity. Or what elements or modified interaction does this application use, and how? I consider this to be a huge positive for the application, but limited, because it does make use of modified interaction. However, it could be more widely used across the board. So as I mentioned before, we have these hyperlinks which can be clicked on. I consider this to be a modified type or a very limited type of gloss within the application. And Chappelle, 2001, page 71, states that one of the benefits of including a gloss or any type of modified interaction is that these elements can help with the acquisition of vocabulary and reading comprehension. And Roy and Crabb, 2014, page 133, state, and literature related to the use of glosses in websites. Nevertheless, there is a growing body of literature emphasizing vocabulary glossing and metacognitive reading strategies in a web environment. So again, the more use of this could promote acquisition of vocabulary and reading comprehension, as cited by Chappelle. Another type of modified interaction that this uses is the subtitles or the script that the video uses at the bottom of the screen. So it provides the script or subtitles. And if the learners have a breakdown in communication or understanding of what is happening in the video, they can at any given time read along with the script discussed. Section 4, L2 Acquisition and Pedagogical Foundations. Question 1 is, how can the learners benefit from the use of the internal dictionary or gloss of the application, thus the hyperlinked words? So Hung and Higgins, 2016, page 192, recognizing the importance of communication strategies, because this is a communication strategy that they can use in order to better understand what is happening within this conversation. So for example, they go through the whole entire conversation. They get to the scripted part with the hyperlinked words. They click and they can choose to click on them or not. And that might be one of their communication strategies in order to understand what is happening. When realizing problems, learners may either develop alternatives to achieve their their original goals, which is, in this case, would be completing the application, and less being able to change the communicative goals in order to avoid error, because it's not a live conversation, but this is cited in Hung and Higgins, 2016, page 902. What is the role of authentic materials and its use within SpeakingPal? So according to Breyer, 2009, even though teachers generally felt that it was important to teach authentic language use, the task made them aware of the difficulties that this might entail. This becomes noticeable in the conflict they display between wanting to teach appropriately for beginners, but not at the cost of teaching real language. And this is Breyer, again, Breyer 2009, page 162. I find this to be a positive and negative aspect within SpeakingPal, because while I consider that this is a real authentic conversation that could happen, it is still highly scripted, and this could be this is not only a problem within call materials, but also textbooks as well, that real-world conversations within an activity in a textbook don't normally occur. You have how can learners using call materials benefit from asynchronous computer-mediated conversation? As I stated before, I feel like this application is somewhere in between the two of them. Sheng, 2007, pages 80 to 82. Hoffman, 1994, maintained the efficiency of email, which provides immediate feedback and allows students to discuss and communicate directly and cheaply with key pals around the world. This is the cheaply here, this asynchronous communication, because while there are paid elements, there are a lot of, not only this application, but there are a lot of applications out there which are free to use for learners. Furthermore, with it talking about this asynchronous communication, magnifying the power and immediacy of the written word, and as such represents authentic communication with a delay which allows students time to think and compose a message. While, as I stated before, there is a bit of a pause between one turn to the next. This normally doesn't occur in conversations at all. There's normally little to no pauses, and the pauses within SpeakingPal are quite longer. Consider that this gives the students a little bit of time to sit back for a few seconds and think about how they're going to compose the next utterance before it appears at the bottom of the screen. Which this reduces anxiety that students may feel if using other forms of communication. And this is Zhang, 2007, page 81. 4. How does SpeakingPal incorporate elements to motivate students to learn? So, communicating with other people in the target language that the learner has required can motivate students to achieve successful language learning. And this is cited in Zhao, Wang, and Xing, 2016, page 1002. Motivation in language learning refers to sustaining interest in putting time and effort into learning the language. So I consider that while this is not real time, this is not person-to-person live conversation, however, they're still in some modified and limited way communicating with another person, and as they go through, they see, they progress, they go through the lesson with some reservations or some limitations, or rather for a specific situation. I could see this as being a good supplemental material to try to use upkeep in the meantime of trying to, for the summer, like between semesters. Application is good because of the portability and that option that you can practice speaking at any given time and at any given place. There's a lack of collaboration between learners, which may benefit them by having more open-ended conversations instead of the highly scripted conversations that are within this application. Does give learners an opportunity to replay the lessons and also replay or re-record their utterances, which gives them an opportunity to self-correct. While this is a good thing, on the other hand, the application, it does indicate that when there is something that is majorly wrong, it does not provide feedback as to what exactly is wrong with the utterance. This has been my video regarding SpeakingPal. Thank you very much for watching.